lobby and spawning in the bottom left-hand side of the map. It is the blue Terran player. I believe for Cass. No, he's not. He's for a star. Cass!
What's the start?
Starcom? I thought you were going for a pun.
No.
I was like, what is the build-up for this pun? Up here in the top left-hand or top right-hand side of the map, we have the red Zerg player. He is SortOf Mr. Mechanics.
He's completely Mr. Mechanics.
Yeah, he has a very interesting background.
Yeah, he is from Sweden and moved to Korea at some point.
I don't know what this says, but like his I think like it's the lighting and stuff. He just looks like a very serious person. He looks like an engineer that I would have to like work with on a call or something in Sweden, like someone part of a European like tech company.
Yeah, I mean he is as a person, I think, a very calm, mostly stoic. Outwards, I think that he is an emotional individual, but he is very introverted. So yeah, you get that feel of just calmness from him all the time, and kind of just
I'm also enjoying that every single he has a light. He actually has lights in his room, but all of them are behind him. So his face is completely shrouded in darkness and lights up every time he looks at a certain part of the map.
Like Kylo Ren type vibes.
Maybe
not facially. I mean, like the vibe.
I didn't watch most of the most recent Star Wars movies, actually.
That's fair. Maybe that's wise even.
I knew of a wise Sith Lord once. All right, so we got a TVZ here, guys, like we were talking about before. We do have, it's pretty standard, like Reaper opening and everything. But like, I know that you are good friends with SortOf. You've known him for a long time and stuff. We always call him Mr. Mechanics and stuff. What are kind of like the play stylistically things that are notable about SortOf?
Okay, so I think as a person, SortOf is kind of reluctant to change a lot of the time. I think that Korea helped them with that a lot. But mostly what you'll see from him is very standard play, and sometimes standard play that lingers on too long between patches. So if he's not playing standard, a lot of the time he's playing older stuff because he hasn't, adapted to the new standard. So that's kind of, I guess that's the main feel that I get from him. But again, Korea, I think, did help him out a lot to kind of diversify and to, mix in more all-ins and mix in more aggression in his play. But it's always going to be, for him, macro game, and that's where he thrives. Macro, late game, army control.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I actually think that in that sense, and this is to the point that you were making before, this is one of the more kind of like standardized matchups. It has absolutely seen some changes or like shifts in how people play it out, different kinds of like openings and stuff that come out. But for the most part, there are some raw mechanical things that have just remained the same for a very long time. So in that sense, yeah, I think it does play a bit to the style that you were talking about from SortOf. But this is actually a bit more of a throwback from a while ago. The Fusion Core coming on down.
Yeah, very cool. And I love to see Cass mixing it up. Wardy was talking about this. It's kind of difficult to, make stuff like this work in TVC in particular. It's easier to kind of get away with mixing up text and whatnot in TVP and the likes, but this is a little bit of a mix-up. Unfortunately for him, it will get spotted right away, but he does start a research to try and fool the Overlord into thinking that it's maybe cloaked Banshees. The reaction is not going to be completely different, though. Maybe Sports should go down on the side of SortOf, which will help out a little bit, at least, against those PCs.
Yeah, I mean, as far as SortOf is concerned, he's, like you said, seen the research coming out on that tech lab, which, Cloak Banshee is actually a pretty normal opening and stuff in this matchup. But also just the Hellions kind of darting in and around, trying to be annoying. So we're going to see that the Hellions are not finding a lot of opportunities to get a whole lot done just yet, but they really just don't want to sacrifice themselves. If they can pair together at the same time by forcing all the queens into one location and the Hellions only have to deal with Zerglings in another, like that's the ideal opportunity there for Koss.
Yes, indeed. So we'll see if he's able to find that. In the meanwhile, he is taking a third command center. And again, like SortOf, well, he has mixed in some aggression. Generally speaking, he won't. And so maybe Cass can get away with, minimal defense in spite of his kind of greedy opener here. So we'll see what he can do. As SortOf is now taking the 4th base to the right-hand location.
Well, Creepster is actually starting to get pretty decently far out, since the Hellions, even though they haven't been able to find a lot of damage, they also haven't really been going super actively against a lot of the Creep Doomers. So, well, first battlecruiser is ready and waiting and teleports on in between the natural and the main base. One Spore Crawler is there, but the drones gonna take a little while to be pulled away. The battlecruiser are gonna be able to buy quite a bit of time over here, and we'll see if the Hellions can move into that 3rd or 4th base location during this.
They're certainly trying, but the Lynx are more or less in position. I say more or less because they just moved out of position as they see the Hellions. A little bit weird of a move, but he's looking for a surround, and with his Banelings, he might be able to punish Cass hard here as he gets the full surround. Now the Banelings will come in. Doesn't even need them as Lynx already had it under control, and it ends up being a great trade for SortOf. At the same time, Cass has killed 9 workers, so not too bad from the VC. Does manage to find some damage there, but certainly not enough to justify the losses of all of his Hellions.
Yeah, when you lose all of the Hellions, those Hellions are actually also important, not just for, doing a little bit of harassment, but keeping your national expansion, your 3rd safe. Lings get in, they get a surround on a lot of the Marines. There's barely going to be 1 Marine maybe left alive at the end of this. Oh, what a disaster.
Yeah, and the SCVs clamp up at the very end there to just make the Baneling have the best possible connection that it could. So it suicides with a happy face, and now 12 workers have gone down as well on the side of Cass. Without the Hellions, you have also lost the ability to control the creep from the side of SortOf, and the ability to really assert any map control at all, right? So SortOf kind of has free reign to spread his overlords, to see what's going on, to send out units, to send out pokes, to do exactly this, right? Like what Raynor was doing so much against Hearthstone, just check and see if he can find any openings, and there's nothing to stop him.
Yeah, if you've killed all of your opponent's units outside of like the battle cruiser, then yeah, there's not a whole lot else actually left over. There's 2 Marines barely holding off a few of those Lings. 2 battle cruisers now going to teleport on forward, but Corruptors are already on the way. 8 Queens are ready and waiting around the map. The transfuse to push back these battle cruisers, even just by a little bit of time for those Corruptors to pop.
Yeah, indeed. It's a little bit rough for sure for Cass. He's not going to be able to evacuate easily with those battlecruisers either. The counterattacks will continue on the side of SortOf, this time met by enough Marines and medevacs that they will be pushed back. But I like what we're seeing from SortOf. An early aggression, a mid-game aggression, right? He's just not sitting with his lead. He's saying if you want to be aggressive with the battlecruisers, you're going to pay for it. He doesn't have quite enough Corruptors for the moment to deal with his battlecruisers, but I don't think they even have Yamad, or they have it as already expensive. This is really, really good for SortOf. Actually, both battlecruisers, I think that's it.
Yeah, that was kind of like the one power unit that it felt like Haas had, and he hasn't really been able to retain a lot of his Marines. So is going to be able to push back a lot of the Zerg army without actually losing any more SCVs there, and still has some Marines left over. But man, I feel like the only thing that was maybe going well for that fight was that he had 1-1. And that helped out a bit, but now 1-1 is tied up over here. More Banelings are being made, and now SortOf doesn't have to worry about the battlecruisers anymore. These Corruptors can actually have free reign and go caustic spray down some buildings or something, go after medevacs while these attacks happen.
Yeah, SortOf has to be careful with his Banelings though. He's already wasted quite a few this game. Now the Lynx are gonna come help out, and those medevacs are gonna struggle to evacuate with the Corruptors being there. However, they're faster for now. The Corruptors and SortOf should continue on the chase so that it's difficult for Cass to evacuate. Nicely positioned tank as well as pre-spread army. The medevacs will fall in the process, and I think that SortOf is doing pretty well here to trade. At the same time, one of the things that SortOf did do consistently wrong, I think, throughout a lot of these attacks is he was kind of going in not with his army consolidated, right? So a lot of those Banelings were able to be microed against a little bit easier in the earlier engagements especially, but now he just seems to have overwhelming numbers. Battlecruisers have been dealt with. An attempt at target fire in there by Cass, but it's going to be too much, and GG will.
A really solid game there from SortOf from start to finish. Well handled, deals with the battlecruiser surprise pretty well. The surround on the Hellions though, Cats, like that was the big moment in a lot of ways, because the Hellions don't get surrounded and just immediately picked off there basically for free. there's not as many Lings alive to do that run by into the natural. There's like some security there with units to help defend. Like that game doesn't go nearly as wrong.
Yeah, most definitely. And that was good for him sort of to check and see if he could find Ling damage at the natural base. He did amazing there. And I really like the follow-up pressure as well, right? Like knowing that you've reset your opponent, then just committing more to units instead of like going for drones or something like that and trying to get more ahead or something that in this case was not the right call. Or it was the right call, but not through economical means, right?
Yeah.
So very well played by SortOf overall. Strategically, I think he played a great game. And now Life Chain is going to be our next one.
Yeah, I actually have to say, like, this is still pretty early on in the groups. I don't want to paint anything as like a really, really horrible picture, but Kasa's already down 0-2. I do think that, yes, he already had to play, you know, some pretty decently strong players and stuff. Like he had to play Raynor, he had to play, I think it was Showtime and stuff. Like, you don't need to feel too bad about losing those matches. I do think in the pathways I see for Kasa to potentially advance out of this kind of group, SortOf is one of the players I do think he has to be able to beat. Right? Like, I think it's going to be very difficult if he can't beat SortOf to beat some of the other players that he'll have to face off against.
Yeah, but the same thing could be said for SortOf in relation to Cass. I think that Cass is likely the biggest underdog in the group. And SortOf is, you know, maybe the second biggest underdog alongside Kung Fu Panda, who he has already defeated. So that's a really great start for him. And if he can get the ball rolling and defeat Cass, then that'll be good for him, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Cass, yeah, he hasn't had the best luck in playing Raynor first, but Hearthstem, I mean, you know, he's a strong player, but who isn't in these groups, right? Like, we're watching the best of Europe battle it out, and it just so happens that while Cass is a very good player, he's always gonna have a tough road ahead of him in these groups, as he spawns here in the bottom right-hand side of the map. Once upon a time, one of the best Terran players in Europe, and from Ukraine. This time around, not as much. But mad respect. I mean, he's survived. He's outlasted all of us.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I used to play with
32.
Cass.
I think.
Yeah, he's 32 and he's duking it out with these kids.
Yeah. Over here on the top left-hand side of the map, we have the red Zerg player. He is SortOf sitting up 1-0.
Yeah, I mean, I have no doubt if there was a 30-plus league, Cass would be, you know, pretty freaking scary.
He'd be
for
top
anyone.
2.
Top 2, yeah.
Sure. You know, Braddock is actually, I think, might be the oldest of last season, I think.
I love that they went to Korea together as well at some point last year or something. Cass and Braddock.
Yeah, that's so sick. Braddock is 34 now, so, you know, bordering on that Artosis age of like 67.
Indeed.
Yeah. But yeah, anyways, the reason why I brought up the whole like standings in the group and all that stuff is I do think like SortOf is sitting 1-1. He was able to take that victory over Kung Fu Panda. Kass is still looking for that first victory. I think this is like going down 0-3 in the group is going to be a really, really rough start for him. Even though he has been playing versus like some really strong players, I think the pressure is on. He's already down 0-1. I'm really hoping that Kass is going to be able to get a bit more into his groove this game and not have, you know, like one of those early mistakes just like throw his entire game plan out the window. Like none of that matters anymore when you have that bad of a, like that one moment where all the Hellions get surrounded.
Yes, indeed. That was a little bit rough for him. He's going to find a little bit of a drone there. A nice attempt by Cass. See, now you have me rooting for Cass. I think you got me with the...
I know you're a big underdog fan.
Yeah, you really sold them. And now I have to root for my contemporary underdog pretty much. So,
what do you think the starport's going to be? What do you think it's going to be for?
I think it's a Liberator most likely, but I wouldn't be mad if it was a medevac and attempt at dropping Hellions, kind of like you see in PvP, just to mix it up. It's a mix-up either way, so...
Yeah, I think either one would be pretty interesting. I think a Battle Cruiser would be really, really weird to see, but... Yeah. You know, I'm just keeping my fingers crossed. No, okay. Ooh. It's a medevac. It's normal. You know, Kass likes to throw out some weirdness, and we were talking about how SortOf is sometimes a little bit more like willing to play older playstyles for a bit longer. Kass has got his playstyle. He really feels comfortable in like a lot of the mechy kind of stuff. I feel like a lot of the time. So yeah. So it's always a treat to watch him do his thing.
Yeah, most definitely. And yeah, battlecruiser would be cool, but then you have a proxy starport that you have to abandon the tech lab or the reactor. Well, mostly a tech lab, right? And it will be a medevac into a liberator. This is much more consistent with what with having the proxy starport. Then you can just fly it back, perhaps. You don't lose as much. There's less time that your opponent has to actually scout it before it does its potential damage. So it's all consistent, all very smart, and Cass is of course a veteran and will be able to pull off the right moves here as he finds 1, 2, 3 drones already and will evacuate the Helios. At the same time, the Reaper will also find a worker, and from the high ground, another one. Cass, maybe we gave him a lot of energy here. Too much energy.
There you go, man. I just had to undersell him a little bit. 5 workers, definitely not too bad considering he gets out of there with both the medevac and 3 of the Hellions. Has that Liberator also coming out on the way. Now, it is worth mentioning that when you go for something like this, your starport has a very long journey back home. It is going to take a bit of time to get back home. So you do want to find a little bit more damage, and he is actually finding a decent bit more with these Hellions.
Very, very nice. Liberator as well, attempting to do what it can. Of course, very nice transfuses from SortOf will kill or save most of the queens. And actually, the target firing, biting back Cass a little bit there, as that queen would have died. A queen certainly more valuable than a single drone. So it's a little bit of a mistake there. Over micro.
Yeah, definitely happens. But hey, you pair those 8 workers with the 5 or so from before. That's still a decent amount of damage that I think Koss can say he walked away with. He's got a 3rd base and stuff back at home now. Again, the only thing is that his starport has just been floating out and around on the map for such a long time. It hasn't been producing any additional medevacs. He doesn't have any other stuff coming out. So the fact that he also kept that other medevac, his first medevac, alive, I actually think is also really, really important.
Yes, indeed. And one of these medevacs will be used to do a little bit of a drop here from Cass. So keeping up the aggression SortOf with very good creep spread in spite of everything that has been going on. So he will not be caught completely off guard. Also has an overlord to spot. Will spot the medevac at the last possible moment. So maybe Cass has a small opening here. Stim will finish at the same time as his drop is ready.
No, moment of truth is gonna come out as the queen is already positioning itself at the edge of creep over here. Sort of very, very much so, at least mentally prepared for it as he gets his units in position. Handful of links will go down. So I mean, hey, 3 trades, definitely not too bad. That is going to get pushed back, and drop will not accomplish a whole lot right now.
Yeah, unfortunately not for him. There is an armory on the way, so most likely just to keep up with those upgrades, which are a little bit over halfway done now on the side of Cass. SortOf not exactly keeping up, so there will be a small timing, a small gap in between upgrades, and Cass might be looking to exploit that.
Nice pick up on an overlord over there. Is going to get forced back yet again. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of normal dancing and grooving. I like that he was able to pick off one of these creep tumors, because I do think, at least in the earlier stages, SortOf has been able to get the creep spread going pretty decently far out. And that does make it harder, even though we didn't get to see it in the last game come into play really. But it does make it harder to actually do some of those push outs and to actually find ways to get in close to one of your opponent's hatcheries and things like that. So Double Drop heads over on the south side, and he's going to probably have to work his way through some of the creep before he gets in range of the hatchery.
Yeah, and that's going to be amazing for SortOf, right? Like, that's the thing about creep spreading and stuff like that. The game actually gets much easier when you become a better player, right? Like for me, I wouldn't have that creep spread. That means I wouldn't get the alert from the scan. I wouldn't see the units. I wouldn't get to reposition my units. And therefore, you're reacting later. That means you have to react faster than a pro player actually does from having those preemptive setups.
Yeah, it allows you to cover a few of the potential like mispositions and stuff, or just, yeah, allows you to position your units a lot better and react with a bit more time. But you do see that a couple of queens getting picked off over here. So even though the drop in the bottom side of the map is not accomplishing a whole lot, the drop in the north is finding tidbits of damage and shutting down, again, some of the creep spread on the north. It's not a ton of the creeps that they shut down, but he's at least shut down some close to the hatchery. I wonder if that's maybe going to open up some avenues of attack later on.
Yes, indeed. That would be a nice opening. However, the medevac will be pulled back, and now SortOf, I mean, if you look at the map, he's looking to establish a lot of control on it, right? Like, he's taking additional bases. The creep spread's still looking very good, and there's no fourth in sight for Cass at the moment.
That is, yeah, gonna make things very, very difficult over here. Well, SortOf is, like you said, taking a bit of control of the map and has been looking really, really comfortable with his 2-2 and stuff getting started on up as well. But he is the one actually gearing up for a big attack over here toward that third base. He's got his army segmented off into 2 different pieces. I wonder if he is going to try and collapse in from both the high ground and the low ground over there on that third base, or if he's going to try and segment off some of the units just to the natural.
Yeah, he might be looking for the army moving out and then maybe hit the other area. I would love that. So it looks like we're going to go into the natural like you were proposing. It's going to be a big bust here. There's no units from Cass. He's going to have to pull his entire army back. And as he does, SortOf is going to have an opening to potentially go into the third with the rest of his army. He has already done a great deal of damage here, so maybe he doesn't even need to commit his army anymore, as he can just sit back, wait for an attack, and if he, if Cass doesn't, then he's 30 workers behind.
Yeah, Ling's still finally getting cleaned up over there. 16 workers, like you said, definitely not too shabby. Now, the important thing is that Koss did have to pull all of his units back into like the recesses of his natural to clean up those units. That gives SortOf a bit more time to replenish the supply he just lost. Has a lot of those Banelings coming on out. He's actually gearing up with 2 different sides of his potential units, getting ready for either multi-prong harass or potentially a surround. We'll see if he actually does try and come in from the backside.
Yeah, that is a lot of Ling Bane, and like you were saying, he's setting up for a big surround. Cass knows about it thanks to his sensor tower. Will he be able to set up for it? I don't know. There is a lot of tanks as well, but the units of the Marines are not going to have any place to run. The Banelings in the back did not get focus fired, but maybe this is enough from Cass at least to hold the position for now. Only 3 tanks remaining, not a lot of bio, so the reinforcements from SortOf should be enough to clean up if he can consolidate before attacking. There is no reinforcements from Cass, and that is why I think SortOf should be able to stay with us.
Yeah, we already see that there's more Banelings that have been made, and they're going to force those Marines back. The siege tanks get cleaned on up, and remember, a lot of economic damage was already done. There was no 4th base like you were saying. This was an extremely committed attack, and it had to do more than just trade. We can already see reinforcements getting cut off. SortOf was already sitting up 1-0, but he is looking to make this a potential 2-0 right here.
Yeah, good focus firing there by Cass on the back end as he retreats. But he has been quite simply overwhelmed. I mean, this is one of those games where you look at the trades and you look at what's going on and you're thinking Cass is doing pretty good, Cass is doing okay.